had to learn really fast. I was doing research. I was going to CSUN's library doing a ton of research. I was a performance major. I got my degree in music performance. And they have an education degree, but I went the performance route. So everything that the music educators have to learn, I had to learn that all on my own. So I did it. And then COVID happened. And they're like, well, we can't find a teacher now during the COVID because we're trying to figure out how to switch on to online. So they asked me if I can stay an entire year extra. So I'm like, sure. At some point, I started noticing that the best way to deal with it is to ask them to repeat what they said. Indirect approaches, I would just walk out of the room because I didn't want to deal with it. I did notice that every single female percussion who went in, he highly encouraged them to switch majors. One of the professors was encouraging the toxic behavior, which is why I think it got so bad. Like any woman percussionist was being talked down to. A lot of them actually did end up switching majors because he's like, oh, a lot more engaging. And then you can also stay on top of the new slang that comes on. Oh. I know that for whatever reason, 67 is hilarious.
What?
Yeah, 67 is the number. If you want to make middle schoolers giggle, 67.
Oh.
Folks who have trouble speaking English or speaking at all, just because teaching, I work with a lot of students who are disabled in the arts. They tend to choose classes in the arts, especially nonverbal kids. And I had this one student in middle school. He joined, he was so excited, and he didn't know the names of the other instruments except for saxophone. He's like, I want to play the saxophone. I want to play saxophone. Saxophone was all he talked about. So, of course, we gave him the saxophone to play. And the school comes over and pulls him out of music during his lunch break. And he was crying while he was giving us his instrument. And that literally broke my heart. Like, even telling the story now hurts so much because he was so excited to play the instrument. And it's almost like, and he was achieving. He's like, this is the only class that I feel like I'm normal. And it like really, like it hits me so hard. Because he has such a hard time in all the other classes.
Okay, hey everyone, this is Abhi from No-Budget Filmmaking Podcast, and here with me is my ex-coworker and an amazing human being, Loliepop. Hi, Loliepop.
Hi, thank you for having me, Avi. I'm very excited and a little nervous to be on your podcast right now. Loliepop Mena-Hamilton. Music, I love music, hiking. Started teaching during my undergrad back in, in 2019, I believe. 2019, yeah, because it was right before COVID. And I did it for just as a fun project. I thought I can play instruments. What if we bring a free music lessons to students? So I gathered a group of musicians at CSUN who would want to give out free private lessons, and I went to the nearest school who I knew, and then we created this whole summer program so elementary and middle school students can have an opportunity for free private lessons because rates are usually expensive. My rate is $45 to $50 an hour, depending on the instrument. And it just goes up from there depending. When I pay for private lessons myself, I pay for lessons that are $100 an hour. So it's really expensive to have private tutors. So we thought it would be cool to do that and then also give us experiences on how to teach students. Since they're free, we're learning how to teach best different ways. And then students are learning how to play the instrument. After the summer program ended, the school's like, we don't have a music teacher. Do you want to do this? And I was like, okay, but I've never taught in a classroom. this is my first time teaching privately. So they're like, yeah, just until we find someone. So like, cool. So I did that. I had no idea what was going on. It was really crazy. It was chaotic. Um, the students actually kind of destroyed me for a little bit because they were so rowdy. And and I had to learn really fast. I was doing research. I was going to CSUN's library doing a ton of research. I was a performance major. I got my degree in music performance. And they have an education degree, but I went the performance route. So everything that the music educators have to learn, I had to learn that all on my own. So I did that. I went that route. Uh, and I did it. And then COVID happened. And they're like, well, we can't find a teacher now during the COVID because we're trying to figure out how to switch on to online. So they asked me if I can stay an entire year extra. So I'm like, sure. And they're like, can you switch doing it from instruments to something else? And I do ballroom dancing as well. So
Oh,
I was like, okay, what if I do dancing instead? So we switched to dancing with the kids and we did that. Um, so teaching still, but different part of the arts. And I did that for a while. And
mhm.
then they wanted to keep me again. And I was like, I need to focus on my education now. I'm going to be a senior and I really need to do my senior recital. And for performance majors, then is equivalent to an hour to an hour and a half worth of performing music. And for percussionist, that's more than one instrument. Like as you can see behind me, I have my marimba, I have a bass drum. So it's playing on marimba, vibraphone, auxiliary instruments. So I have to play all of this, all of this. So I retired for put it on pause, the more accurate word, from teaching. After I got my degree in performance, I also got a minor in entrepreneurship, which hence why I did the project too of starting a summer program for the schools because I thought it would be fun. Also aligned with my minor. I realized that I really enjoyed teaching music. And after the first struggling for the first couple of months and trying how to do everything, I noticed that it was a lot of fun. It was stressful, but seeing a child go from not knowing how to play an instrument to like I can play this note now, and they're so excited. It just reminds me of when I first started to play instruments. I was incredibly excited to do anything on instrument. I would always want to show my family, like, look what I learned today. I was just super hyped for everything. And it just took me back to that. And it's like it feels as if you're reliving that moment, but you're seeing yourself in third person in a sense.
Hmm. So, what inspired you to choose music in the first place as a major?
As a major,
Yeah.
uh, it started in middle school. I always liked music as a child. I just didn't know which instrument was for me. I tried a lot of instruments before I found my instrument. I tried the flute. Uh,
Mhm.
it was extremely stressful for me because I would get lightheaded and dizzy, which is normal. And kept switching from instruments since kindergarten, trying to find an instrument. And in middle school, I found percussion. And I really fell in love with percussion. So I started doing that and it became my entire personality. I was the band geek. Um, I was always going to competitions with my school and doing all that. I was in all their band programs that they had, every single class. So in sixth grade, I was like, I'm going to do this for life. I just didn't know how because I didn't know what opportunities there were. In high school, I started homeschooling, so I wasn't able to go to a school's band, and I was like, I still need to do music in my life. What is there? So I did some research, and then I found out that CSUN has a youth orchestra program. So I show up on audition day with a piece for marimba, which is behind me, and I started playing it, and All of a sudden, the director who was auditioning me just starts screaming, "Stop!" And he's yelling at the top of his lungs. And I'm in the moment. I'm just thinking of the music. And he's like, "Stop, stop." And it terrified me. It was my very first audition ever. And he's screaming, "Stop." And I was like frozen in fear, thinking like, what did I do wrong? And he's like, "You're in. Can you play timpani?" And I didn't know what a timpani was at all. I had no idea. And I was like, "No, but I can learn." And it's like, that's the kind of energy we need. And he's like, "Do you know what a timpani is?" Because he probably saw the confusion on my face. I'm like, "No, I do not, but I can learn. I can go home and figure it out." And he's like, "Well, this is a timpani." And he showed me, he gave me some free mallets for it. And he gave me like a quick little 10-minute lesson on how to play. And he's like, "Okay, go and figure out how to play it. Come on Saturday. You're in the orchestra." So he told me about it. He gave me all the details. In high school, that's like, okay, now I know a little bit more. What are the different degrees? I started doing private lessons myself since I was homeschooled. My parents paid for private lessons to make up for not playing in an ensemble. And then every Saturday, I would go to play with an orchestra. And that was exciting. And that's when I realized that I wanted to do music. I love performing. So I chose the performance route
Okay.
since I wanted to have it around me.
Do you want to mention your high school?
High school, yeah, I would Kobe Academy homeschool is
Oh,
for college. I think the biggest shock factor was going from, well, my whole education, I was in a private school. The preschool to high school consisted of less than 600 kids. And then homeschool was just my sister and me. So I went from really small things to a college campus is humongous. So that was the biggest shock factor, is seeing so many people and so many people who believe different beliefs, different opinions. Whereas at the school I went to, the private school, it was a Catholic school. So everyone there was Catholic and believed everything. And in college, everyone has different opinions. So it was just crazy. Like, oh wow, there's so many different things. In the music wide path, the instruments, I was already familiar with all the percussion instruments by then that we were learning, mainly because I had 4 years for high school and my teachers were prepping me for college. So in that motion, that was fine. The hardest part, I would say, was my practicing with quadrupled. I went to practicing, started out with like four, in high school, I would practice about 2 to 3 hours, like 5 days a week. I went from that to practicing every single day. By the end of my college, I was practicing 6 hours, 6 days a week, plus rehearsals. So like I was in orchestra, I was in the concert bands, I would play for recitals. So that doesn't count rehearsal time for that. So it was like 6 hours of me practicing by myself every day, plus homework, plus going to work. So it was just tiring, mentally and physically tiring, because playing instruments is requires a lot of mental ability and physical ability.
okay. So what about the theory? Did the theory overwhelm you too, or was it easier to learn?
When I first learned music theory, it was it was overwhelming a little bit, but I took it on like a challenge. I always tell my students it's like math. It takes time, and once you learn all the rules, you can figure it out fairly quickly. It just requires time to do everything. And it actually became one of my favorite classes is going to harmony. I took an extra one for fun. Uh,
Yeah.
and I made sure to go with the hardest professor because why not? Uh,
Okay.
I think of all the music classes, musicianship was the hardest for me. Uh, Percussion is my instrument, so I don't, if I play the note, if I play a C, it's always going to be C, unless the instrument itself is damaged and the note is out of tune. But whenever I hit the notes, it's going to make that sound. Whereas a woodwind or a brass instrument, if you play a note, you're holding the correct fingering or you're in the correct position, it won't come out the right sound unless your embouchure is correct, your mouth, how you play. There's a lot that will make your note correct. and or accurate to what you wanted to do it. So musicians who are playing woodwinds or brass, they have to listen to get their notes, whereas percussion, I just rely on my instrument. So musicianship, it was a lot about hearing the music. You hear it, and then you have to write down the notes, singing what the music was on paper. And that was really hard for me because someone could play something and I had no idea what was going on. But if I saw what they were doing with their hands, I could figure it out. So my first 3 semesters in musicianship, I don't know how I passed. I just did all the homework, showed up in class at the test, and I passed all those classes. And I was realized at that point, I keep passing all of my classes, but I'm not actually getting anywhere. So I'm like, which of these professors are the hardest? And everyone's like, don't take Howard, don't take Howard. He's so hard with everything. Um, he won't give you an A, he won't pass you. And I was like, that is the teacher I need to get better. So I made sure to sign up for his class, his 8 a.m. class, because that's the only time periods he teaches for whatever reason. So I signed up after the first class with him. I walked up to him and I told him, I was like, I don't know how I passed musicianship 1, 2, and 3. I did though. I'll show up to every class, I'll do all the homework, but I really do need help. And he's like, okay, I can do that for you. It's like, but you're serious. You need to put in the time. I was like, yes, I'm ready to do that. And so he did. And that semester was extremely hard. He would put me on the spot and everything. But I got so much better with musicianship. And I'm really thankful for that. And after that, musicianship was fairly easy. So I think that was probably the hardest, was the musicianship aspect of it.
Okay, when you said put you on a spot, what does that mean? Like, uh, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, so when we would learn, we had these books, and there would be 1 lines or 2 lines of music, and he would ask for someone to sight read the music using solfege. So you'll look at the music and you'll sing it and have to get the correct sound out of it, but then also use the correct word for it. So each, depending on how, there's fixed solfeged and movable. Most places use fixed, which is C is no, it's, I think most people use movable. It was a long day for me, so I'm having a brain fart right now.
It's okay. It's okay.
But
It's completely fine.
yeah, so C is do, D is re, mi. Um,
Mm,
so you just have to assign those letters. And
mm.
so he'll be like, okay, I need this person to sight read. He'll be like, Lollipop, can you sight read this for me? And I would have to sing it using as to the best of my ability. He'll play one note so I can hear the pitch and then go off of that.
Okay, so he was basically trying to let you hear it.
Yeah.
Like he just wants you to play by ear, not by music or by watching. That's what I'm getting. I don't know much about music, by the way, but
Oh, that's perfectly fine. Yeah, he'll play one note just so you can hear the starting note, and then you have to sing the rest just by your memory of that one note.
oh, that's okay. Okay, that's really tough.
Yeah, it is really difficult. So he would call people and put them on the spots, and especially since I went up to him the first class and told him I want to get better at this. I picked you as my professor because I heard you're tough on your students and I need that. So he would call me often because he knew I wanted the challenge.
Okay. You answered it a little bit previously, but for example, when you started and when you graduated, how much did you changed and how much your worldview changed after when you started and if you're looking back on it when you graduated?
Yeah, there is a lot that I have changed from the start to the end. Performance wise, it's drastically different. I actually had to stop playing for a little bit because I would practice so much, I ended up injured. It was so bad that like buttoning or buttoning my shirts. I couldn't do it. It was super painful to do that just because I would practice so much. And so I didn't play for almost a year or two. When I went back, I decided an easy way to go back into music was to play a solo piece I played in high school. And I grabbed that piece out and I put it on the stand. And this piece took me months to learn. I was able to just read it straight through at a very slow tempo. I was like, this is crazy. This piece, when I first learned it when I was a young teenager, took me forever. And then now, having graduated college, I picked up that piece. I didn't remember how it went, and I was able to read through the music. And I can tell which parts gave me a lot of problem because I like circled it and starred it and then like broke it down. And it was impressive to see that moment because I was like, high school me could never pick up a piece and just play straight through. And then I grabbed some new pieces that I haven't looked at, and the same thing happened. I was able to play through it just slowly from the start to the end. And that's just because of the college education. Um, Focused on a lot of different parts that would help you. It's like the metaphor everyone uses, give a man fish or teach a man how to fish. Um, College teaches you what to do in order to teach yourself how to play or the skills you need to grow.
Okay.
If that makes
No, it makes sense. But apart from that, there's also, as you said, you were the first of the shock was that you see a lot of people. So how does your worldview change with meeting new people and meeting new artists and musicians?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. I think the biggest part was just again seeing so many people. That part really was a little terrifying to do it. I didn't see myself as a very social person, and so I had to work really hard to become social. At first, I would just observe everyone and just watch and listen to everyone's conversations. And in the music industry, there's a lot of networking. You have to be communicating with others, put yourself out there. And just observing everyone, I noticed that I need to start doing the same. Um, Whereas before, I was just, I guess, used to the traditional school way where you're handed opportunities. You're like, here you go, you're doing this, or you sign up for something and then you get it. Whereas in the real world, that's not necessarily the truth because there's thousands of other people trying to get the one thing, the one position, or in the same job. Uh, so learning that I have to really work. Seeing the competitiveness of everything, I think, was uh, fun to see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that kind of relates to what that kind of motivated you to practice or dare I say over practice?
Yeah, especially more the percussion department is really, really told me to practice. Told all their students to practice. I wasn't the only student percussionist who ended up injured. Some percussionists had to postpone their senior recital just because they couldn't play. There's some percussionists who even dropped out just because it was extremely competitive and there was a lot of practicing. I would practice 4 hours every day and they're like, you're not practicing enough.
Oh,
I upped it to 6 hours every day and they're like, you're not practicing enough. You need to practice more. I was like, how more can I practice? I get less than 6 hours of sleep every night. I'm a full-time student. I would always get the waivers, so I would take up to 21 units every semester. So like I'm taking 21 units. I have a part-time job as well. And then I have my chores at the house. I have homework plus 6 hours of practice. I don't think I could squish in more thing unless I do less sleep. Um, so I forgot where I was going with this. I'm gonna be honest.
okay. It was more like the competition led you to over practice.
Yeah, and a lot of places, the percussion department at that time was a little toxic. There were some folks who would come in and announce themselves like, I'm the best percussionist here. I'm better than all of you. They would actually say that to all of us. And so that actually did a lot on my own self-esteem. Like I started becoming really nervous on performing, whereas before I wasn't nervous. I played for an arena of 1,000 people in competition. We were the only elementary school there. Um, Against high school and college students, they didn't even have, we were the youngest students and we competed in that. And I was a little nervous then, but compared to my nerves during college, it was a huge gap. College made me super insecure with all my playing. So I had to really work on playing in front of a crowd now just because of hearing how the other percussionists would talk. Everyone's like, oh, I'm better than you. You should, and then some folks even like, oh, you should switch majors. Percussion is a guy's instrument. And I was like, well, I really like this. I'm going to do this. And so there was a lot of that. The instrument helps if it's your height. So I would lower the instrument all the way down for me to play. And then people was like, oh, I can tell when you practice because the instrument's too low. Why are you even playing? And I was just like, short people can play instruments too. It's fine. Um, so my private instructor, he actually was like, we're going to work on your nerves. It's okay to be nervous. It means you care. Well, let's work on it. So in my private lessons, he was like, okay, let's do 20 push-ups right now and then play this piece. And he was saying that when you're working out, you get the same adrenaline than you do when you're nervous. Very similar. Your hands get clammy sometimes, you get sweaty, you're a little out of breath. So if I do some exercise and then play an instrument, I can learn to play under those same circumstances, which actually did help a lot. Um, that helped me be like, okay, when my hands feel like this, I know I can play through it because I practiced playing in moments like that. So that helped out a lot. And then my confidence slowly came back and I
Okay.
was able to play more. Now I play for students and I always tell students like it's okay to make mistakes. Stuff happens. It's okay. No one can ever play anything perfect. It's just you show up, you try hard, and you play it. And it's okay if other folks are saying like I'm better than you or not. You still got chosen to play that part.
Okay. And also all this toxic environment that you're describing, how did you deal with that
A
apart
lot
from
it just added more practice time to me because I wanted to get better. So I would be like, okay, I'm going to try to get as good as they are. I'm going to try to do that. And as I was getting better and practicing more, I would actually practice things my professors told me to practice. They told me you need to practice with the metronome every single time you practice. So I did that. And then my professor's like, wait, you're practicing too much with the metronome. Normally, when I tell my students that, they only add the metronome for half of their practice. It's like, you need to now get used to practicing without the metronome. So I would do everything the professor would say. And I started seeing that even though a lot of these percussionists were saying they were the best in the percussion department, I started noticing that a lot of it was mostly talk.
Okay.
Um, One example where it was very clear to me that there was talk. We were in a master class and they were showing how the different ways to crash cymbals in an orchestra. And one person shouts like, "Oh, we don't need to be having a master class in this. I can already play cymbals. I can do that." So he has her come up and she tries to do the crash and she couldn't at all. And then my private teacher knows that I was actually practicing crash cymbals because I didn't want to get an air pocket.
Mm.
Um, Usually for orchestral pieces, there's like if either they have a lot of cymbal crashes or there's like one cymbal crash for the entire 30 minutes. So I'm like, I'm not going to get an air pocket and no sound comes out for the one crash. I'm going to always get the crash. And the way to make sure you get it is practicing. Practice makes a habit. So I practiced this. So my professor sends me up there. He's like, okay, let's have Loliepop try to do that exact crash. And I did it the first time. And then she shouts out, she's like, well, that was just luck.
Oh.
And he's like, Laura, can you do that 4 times? So I did it 4 more times. And then he's like, don't speak up on others if you don't know what they're capable of. And that's like when I realized that a lot of these folks were more talk than anything because they were probably insecure of this exact same thing. I think at some point I started noticing that the best way to deal with it is to ask them to repeat what they said. Because most of the time they just say something without thinking is the first thing they say. And when you're just like, well, what do you mean by that? And usually most folks I notice in my own experience don't want to double down to that. And they usually like, well, I didn't mean it like that. So I would just ask for clarification on like, I don't understand where you're getting with a comment like that. That's the most direct approach. Indirect approaches, I would just walk out of the room because I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah, and again, for someone who's like you and wants to start and hears from you all of these things, what you gonna suggest to that person? Because they will be someone who's new, he or she or they wants to start, and they hear all these negative things, they might say, okay, I don't want to do that just because I cannot handle it. What do you want to say that to them?
I think that everyone can do it. I tell my students, it just takes a lot of patience for the music wise and for the people that's going to be in any field you join, any workplace. You're going to find that. And it's just not letting it get to your head as hard as that might be. It's just knowing that you've gone so far at that point and you can go further. And a lot of the times there's those people are speaking from their own insecurities. So just to keep moving forward.
Okay, so the message is just keep moving forward and don't care much about what they are saying.
Yeah, and it has gotten to me. There's times where comments they made me cry, but I usually would step out and like I'm not giving them the light of seeing like it affecting me. I would go somewhere else and then give myself a moment, and then eventually just go back to doing it. And apparently, eventually, those folks would be like, those comments aren't affecting her, and I won't make them as much.
Okay, and okay, I have to ask, did Professor did nothing for all this toxicity?
One professor encouraged it.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, I did notice that every single female percussion who went in, he highly encouraged them to switch majors. This was my first private instructor at college. He actually told I had let me start from the start. First semester in college, um, getting used to the large crowds. I had 9 family deaths within that semester before finals. There was a lot of cancer, natural deaths. It was 9. It was a lot.
Sorry.
My parents' house was I was living at home at the time, was right across from the big fires that were happening. We were evacuated, so I had to deal with that. Our pets. So there was a lot of also pets that passed away. So there was a lot going on in my personal life as well. And so and then with this new insecurity of seeing all these people and then bringing me down for my performance, becoming now I learned that I was becoming nervous when I played for folks, which was new. He actually told me, "You're taking a psychology class. You should think about switching majors to psychology." And I was like, "But I don't want to do psychology." And he's like, "No, you should really think about it." I was like, "I'm not going to switch to psychology. This is a GE I'm taking. I really love music." So I find out a couple days later that he talked to the head of the percussion department to try to get me kicked out of the program. Yeah. And the head of the percussion department actually was the person who told me I was in the orchestra for the youth in high school when I first auditioned. So he's known me in high school for 4 years, and he's known my work ethic, and he's really like that. He still likes me whenever I send them an email. I'm like, hey, and we always chat. He's like, hey, Lollipop, so this professor said this. What's going on? Can you fill me in? So I told him everything. He's like, got it. We'll take care of it. And then he's switched my private instructor. So I was assigned a new private instructor. And from there, I started actually seeing improvement. But one of the professors was encouraging the toxic behavior, which is why I think it got so bad. I, like any women percussionist, was being talked down to. A lot of them actually did end up switching majors because he's like, oh, he told this other woman, he's like, you like biology, you should switch over. And she did. She switched over majors. I remember walking into the percussion room and someone was crying because he told them that she needs to switch because she's not good enough. But I stuck to it just because, like, I want to do this. I know I want to do this. You're not going to tell me that I don't want to do this because you don't know who I am. You don't know what I actually want. I know what I want.
Yeah, that's a good message, but that's horrible.
Yeah.
That's that's really bad. I never heard of that, to be honest. I heard the toxicity in the industry, but in college, and there was one person who was encouraging, and there was no one who was discouraging it or at least reprimanding this behavior.
I know my private instructor was really good at doing it. He would always call out students when they got a little too cocky. Um, like some folks started telling their professor, who this professor was on call for the LA Phil. When they couldn't play a part because it was too hard, they'll be like, hey, can you come in and play this for our concert? And it's like, yeah, sure. And he'll sight read it, like just show up and play without practicing. Some of these college students were telling them, like, I know more than you.
Oh,
No, he's like, okay, can you play this? And they couldn't. Um, so he knew how to deal with percussionists whose egos got too high, and he would have to deal with that. One time, he actually kicked someone out of class for the day because they were behaving so poorly, and he was just like, I don't want you in your class until your behavior changes. So he kicked the student out, and he's like, I need you to see a better attitude for you in class. You're a student, you're here in college, you're paying thousands of dollars for me to teach you. And that's what I'm trying to do.
and that's I'm really, really surprised and, to be honest, sad by all these stories because how it did changed your personal life, the music, because we talk about all of this that it's healing, it heals you from inside. And on the other end, we are seeing a lot of toxicity in the industry. So, how did you help it to make it a positive experience?
I I'm trying to figure out how to word this because there's so many different positive experiences I got from music. I think the biggest point it was meeting a lot of folks. There's a lot of people that I still talk to from college, just because we were musicians together. One of them we actually even played in for our wedding, my wedding. She sung for the entire thing. It was amazing. So it's just getting connections with folks. I'm actually starting a band with some folks who I went to college with. Um, so that's exciting. And another thing is that everyone who's there in music, you can immediately connect with because you're all there because you all love music. So you right off the bat, you have something in common. So it makes conversations fairly simple, and really easy to get into. You just start talking about something in the field, which is exciting. Um, I think that's the biggest, is just connections with folks. And as I started to age, I noticed that I started to become more of what's that? I'm having a brain fart, but what's the word? An extrovert. So I could be an extrovert at times, and then sometimes I'm just like, no, leave me alone. But I started to grow out of my shell, and I noticed that I really loved playing with other folks because in high school, a lot of it, I was homeschooled in high school. So a lot of times I would play by myself, except on Saturdays when I played with the youth orchestra. So it's just learning how, it's just seeing how exciting it can be to play with folks. So what I really started doing in college is asking folks who wanted to play duets with me for fun. I ended up with a sight reading buddy who was a friend at the time, and now we're married together. Just because we would practice so much together, we would sight read all the time, play duets. It's like fun stuff. So seeing, just building connections with folks.
is the key.
Yeah.
And apart from that, what about the business side of the music industry? How did it change for you, and what is your approach?
Yeah. So most of the business side, there's music industry majors. I was in the performance side. The business side that I saw was from the entrepreneurship side that didn't relate directly to music. I took a music entrepreneurship class, but I minored in entrepreneurship. So I learned business, a general business thing, and then I applied that to music itself. One example is in our entrepreneurship classes, we had to start business completely from scratch and try to turn that into an actual business. And we would talk to real investors for our class. We'll look out and find actual investors to possibly invest in our thing. And my group actually got investors to invest in us. We joined a competition. We won, I believe it was $800, my very first competition. And then after the competitions, he's like, I know it was just a class, but I would actually like to fund you to turn this idea into an actual business. And we all talked about it. It was really cool because we wanted to do a coffee shop. And we decided that we want to focus on our studies instead. And then I realized after doing that competition, it's like, what if I try to do something similar, but instead of a group, try something on my own? So I really started thinking around that time is also when my then boyfriend, now husband, we discovered that he was epileptic, having
Oh,
seizures. It was undiagnosed for so long just because there's over 40 different types of seizures. And they started giving us stats, and seizures are so common, and a lot of people don't know what to do. Like, just to drop some, 1 in 10 people will have a seizure sometime in their life. 1 in 26 would be diagnosed with epilepsy. And 1 in 3 of those people who are diagnosed with epilepsy live with uncontrollable seizures, which means medication cannot control their seizures. Whereas medication can for some folks. And then I was looking into that and being like, that's horrible. Imagine going through your entire life. So I found a study where it showed that music can actually decrease seizures up to 50%. And they did this study specifically with Beethoven's piano sonatas. That if you listen to Beethoven's piano sonatas 2 hours every day, it decreased seizures up to 50%. And I
oh,
was like, wow, that's impressive, especially with folks who have uncontrollable seizures. That I would take that over nothing. So I, after talking to folks, I noticed that no one really knows what to do if someone's having a seizure. It's like most people should know if 1 in 10 people will have a seizure. I know more than 10 people. And then after I started thinking of that, I was like, how can I turn this into a business? So I thought of creating a nonprofit organization called Musicians for Awareness. So it's still in the starting product right now, but I worked on stuff. I put everything together. There's a business model canvas where you put everything like your ideas together. It's like brainstorming, but more organized. Something that you would show people to join your cause.
Mm.
And as I was talking to people, giving them my elevator pitch, saying like, this is why you should join this. This is why you're doing this. Folks would be like, I'm really interested in this because this happened to me, or I know this happened to my friend or my mom or my dad or my sibling. And every single person I talked to had a similar experience. And so we had over 20, our first event was really successful. We had over 25 musicians donate their time to play a 45-minute concert. And then I worked with the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Los Angeles to come in after the concert and give a presentation on what seizures are, the most common types, and what you can do to help that person if they're having a seizure. And we, the venue sponsored us. We had the venue for free. In addition, Trader Joe's also sponsored the event because I walked up to Trader Joe's and you worded it as a way as they can't say no to you. Because you walk up to them, introduce myself as like, this is what I'm doing. Do you want to support our cause in promoting awareness about seizures and epilepsy? How are you going to say no to that?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You're forcing them to say yes. And then you tell them, like, this is what would happen. These are the benefits just by you helping out. And you start out small with, like, I started off by going of like, I got Trader Joe's to sponsor me. It's a big corporation. They gave me some baskets to give out for free. Um, they're not raffle tickets because in raffles you have to do some tax stuff with it. I forget what the way you word it, so you don't have to worry about taxes. Uh, the terminology, but it was a giveaway, so they gave us stuff for the giveaway. Everyone who attended got something, and then they can enter to have partake in the giveaway. And then from there, you go to someone else, and you're like, "Hey, so I'm doing this. We have 25 musicians from CSUN. We're being sponsored by Trader Joe's. The Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Los Angeles is partnering with me. Can we use your venue for free?" And they said yes. So it's like telling them what it is, but you're not telling them like, oh, there's CSUN. You have selling yourself. I'm trying to word this better. Just showing the great and the potentialness of everything. I didn't say Trader Joe's just gave me baskets. I said Trader Joe's sponsored us, which they sponsored us by giving us baskets. But the next person feels like, oh, I need Trader Joe's believes in them. I should too.
Oh, so using basically building credibility using the big names.
Yeah, and that helped out a lot.
Oh, and okay, so 25 musicians played and all the Epilepsy Foundation was there. What was the entire outcome?
Higher outcome, we had, I don't remember the exact attendance, but we had a lot of folks come to the to watch the performance. And then we also explained how music is really beneficial for folks with seizures and epilepsy. And also a lot of folks, when you say like, hey, we're doing a safety talk on the different types of seizures, that kind of lowers your attendance because some folks they're like, I don't want to spend my Friday nights at a lecture.
Oh,
But most folks would be like, oh, I'll go to a concert. This is cool. There's some free snacks and stuff I can munch on while I watch a concert. And then I'm also promoting a good cause. And that tends to sway more people to go. And we did it for free because everything there we got from donations and time. So I didn't spend a single penny other than my own time doing this, which was great.
that's amazing. Are you planning to do it again?
Yeah, I'm trying to get started. I want to turn it into an actual NPO, nonprofit organization. So just getting the steps from there. You always have to start from the scratch. I did this as a project during my undergrad for my minor, and I competed with it in the bull ring competition at CSUN. I was the first group. Normally, entries who compete at the bull ring compete with their idea more than once. They compete in it, and then they don't make it past the next stage, and then they revise it, and then they compete again. They revise, and they do that. And usually, the projects that win are usually senior projects, folks who have been doing it for a while. I was the first group that went there and made it to the semifinals without having any coaching from anyone. I just did it all on my own, which was really cool to do. I was made it to semifinals, competed with that, had no professional coaching, whereas everyone else has competed with their idea multiple times and had professional coaching for the idea.
Oh, that's so good. That's so cool. Apart from that, are you thinking about like going through the bureaucracy and get it registered, your nonprofit?
Yeah, I have the paperwork actually. There's a lot of different paperwork you need to fill out, and just turning it all into an actual nonprofit organization.
Okay, so I'm assuming once it's done, you will announce it to the world, right?
Yes, once it's done.
Okay, so if anyone who is interested in joining or helping you out, how should they reach out?
They can reach me out on Instagram. Unfortunately, I'm kind of addicted to Instagram, so yeah, that's the best way of contacting me. Uh, is through Instagram. My handle is Kieran Check.
Okay. I will put your Instagram in the description so that people can reach out to you. And apart from that, what's the plan? Like what you're looking for if everything goes good, it goes well. What's the timeline for the NPO?
Timeline. It's really hard to say because if it gets approved right from the start, then it should be by next month. But if there's some hiccups in the red, which I always expect because there's usually always hiccups, it takes some time. The goal is to eventually have an A group of musicians who are the first people who get to dib. Like, we're going to perform here for this cause. Um, and then they get to pick, and then there's a B set of musicians who get the second comp. So first dibs are the A performance or the main group of folks. They're like, I want to perform in this one. I don't have time for this one. I can perform in this one. And then it gets sent to the B musicians who then pick up everything. Uh, Eventually, at the start, it's going to be all donating time. And eventually, once it starts kicking off and we start receiving donations and things like that, the musicians will get some pay. So it'll be a little bit of work. But the whole purpose of the nonprofit that I want to build is that we partner with other nonprofits organizations to push their cause and how their cause is related to music itself. So my first partner is actually the Epilepsy Foundation of Greater Los Angeles. They already agreed to continue to work with me after the first event. I actually have a certification specifically for seizure first aid, and I just get that renewed every single time I need to. But they're really great and have agreed to work with me often. So that's our first client that we have. We would go out to there, and from there, we'll move to different nonprofits and see if they would like to partner with us. They can give guest talks, and we'll find music that helps with their cause, bring their cause, and play that music and have the two together.
Okay, and if someone is looking, if someone like me, for example, who wants to volunteer but is not a musician and not a music major and doesn't play any instrument, are there any spaces for those individuals as well?
Yeah, anyone can help out any way. If, like, say you're very artistic and you want to draw up the poster, that's one way you can help. If you're someone who's just like, I can help with the ushering and the wayfinding, helping folks like be like, hey, this way to your seats. If you need to use the restroom, it's down the corner. Folks who want to help with setup, setting the event up. If someone just like, I just want to support there and be, I don't know what skills I have, but this is what I can do. And then that you find out that they're great at having conversations with folks. You could send them off to talk to everybody to book so that the presentation could be a little bit more personalized.
Hmm. Okay, so again, they can reach out. Is there a website for the NPO or any other social media account?
Not yet. It's all unpublished right now. It's
Hmm.
just getting the final detail. I'm about like I would say like 30 to 40% done with the website right now.
Hmm.
It's just so once it's published, then they can find it. But as of right now, it's all ideas. I have the presentation that I sh would show investors
Hmm.
ready,
That's
but I
nice.
don't have the actual website up.
Okay, okay, that's completely fine. And sign me up, by the way. I'll be there for ushering or any XYZ thing you need. Okay, I can
Or
be security as well. What?
DJing.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Please, I need some exposure there.
Yeah.
But but yeah, again, and it's a beautiful cause, and I didn't know about that. So thank you very much for informing everyone. And apart from that, uh, okay, I forgot my question. Jeez. Uh, okay, I forgot my question. Um, okay, I lost it.
It's
Apart from that, who's someone who, okay, it's negative, it's somewhat of a negative topic, but uh, okay, as a woman in mostly men's field, which has been projected to you while you signed up for the precautions, um, what would be your message for the other women who are out there and wants to get into the music business and which is traditionally seen as a men's field?
I think it's just to hold confidence. Everything's a performance from the start. The way a lot of folks say that it's the actual playing your instrument that's the performance wise, but just walking across the stage, walking into the audience at the end of your performance, the way you hold yourself, all of it's a performance. You're essentially like an actor, which I know you have done some acting. Uh,
How do you know that?
I just checked your Instagram when you invited me
Oh,
to the
okay.
podcast.
Okay, okay. I thought it was pretty hidden, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Um, so the entire thing is you want to hold yourself, and even if you feel like, oh, I'm lucky to be here, I was like, oh, I don't deserve to be here, like, don't show that. Just show like I belong here, and your attitude actually has a lot to do with it. And for example, in one of my jobs, I was working, and it's a high security job. There's a lot of performance, and someone walked through, and I looked over to my supervisor, and someone just walked through. They looked so confident. I was like waiting for my supervisor to say something, and I was like, is that person supposed to walk in? Everything's closed to the public right now. And then my supervisor was like, I don't know, but they were so confident in walking. I think they're supposed to be here. And I realized at that moment, it really shows how you walk. It turns out the person was. We just didn't know them. So after that, we spent the next 5 minutes just practicing how to walk to make it look like you're walking, um, and you know where you're going. And we practiced that with each other for fun. And since then, I realized that it's how you present yourself, and that helps out. So especially for women in male dominant fields, is know that you're be there. Don't let other folks intimidate you. And percussion is actually now starting to lose that stereotype. I know a lot of women now that are in percussion. So it's nice to see that this younger generation isn't, oh, women have to play the flute and women have to play the violin because they're dating instruments, because they're not. Everything's, any gender can play anything.
Yeah, and that's the message we should season should promote, but unfortunately it's not.
Yeah.
Even though I'm a seasoned graduate, I'm shit talking them. But
It's nice to see that the percussion department actually hired a woman percussionist, and I'm super excited about that.
oh, that's so amazing. Do you
Yeah.
want to name drop her?
I don't know her name. I don't remember. I just saw her, they announced her, and I was super excited.
Oh, that's so cool. And apart from that, are there any, apart from the season exclusive scholarships, are there any other scholarships that people should know about?
I'm not sure. The scholarships that I applied for FASA,
Mhm.
um, and then the CSUN Music Department scholarships.
Okay. Okay. Any other website or any other resource you want to recommend to people who are listening?
Yeah, I think, let me think about this. For websites, hmm, I did most of my, I usually just find someone who's very knowledgeable on the subject and I speak to them and get like what you're doing, but unofficial podcast version.
Yes.
Exclusive for me. That's what I tend to do is find folks who know a lot about the subject and not be afraid of asking questions. Um, and other times when I ask someone for something, they're like, I don't know about that topic, but I know someone who knows about that. And then I get their number and then I reach out to them and they'll talk to me. And a lot of people are really friendly. For example, in my undergrad, I started to get into Brazilian music,
Okay.
and then like Brazilian music, more like batucada and the percussion aspect of it, traditional wise.
Hmm.
And my professor was like, "Okay, reach out to this person." So I did, and he gave me like 2 hours of his time just talking to me about different things, about how the history of it, how each instrument works, and all of that. And from there, I really got into it, and to the point to where my professor told me is when I would ask him questions, he was like, "At this point, you know more about this than I do," which was fun because of but especially to see how far I have come from not knowing anything to hearing your professor say that. So but it's just communicating, not being afraid to communicate with others and ask questions and get references, referrals from other folks. That's what I did a lot. And in this day and age, everyone has Google on their phones and they can do research. Just making sure that the sources you pick are reliable.
Mm. Yeah, no more chat GPT, right?
Yeah,
Or Gemini.
yeah,
I did some exercise on things to give ChatGPT something creative, and it was the most soulless piece ever. I give it some stories or ideas, and it was so soulless that I was like, okay, it's not taking over. At least artist, it's not
yeah,
taking over the artist business, thankfully,
yeah.
yet.
Which is good because that's the jobs that people actually really enjoy doing.
Yes. Oh, are you saying that engineers don't?
No, no, that's not what I meant.
No, yes, that's what you meant. I get it.
Sorry, yeah, no, that's sorry, you came off a little wrong.
No, no, I'm just messing with you. That's cool. And is there any other tips or tricks you want to give someone who is just starting in any performances, let alone music?
Yeah, I always tell my own students practicing every day is more important than even if it's for 10 minutes every single day, that's better than practicing 1 hour once a week. Just because you stay on top of everything. Even just 10 minutes, you like sit down and you're like, I'm going to do this one thing for 10 minutes. And then the next day you decide, I'm going to refresh this for like a minute and then try this thing for 9 minutes. That's way more beneficial because you're doing it every single day and being consistent than if you do it. Another example that tends to happen, like one student could practice 1 hour every 2 weeks or two
Okay.
hours every 2 weeks. So you want consistency and daily tends to be much better. You'll see more improvement that way. And what often happens is a student will sit down and set aside 10 minutes and they'll actually end up practicing 30 minutes instead because they just get absorbed into the instrument. And if they don't feel it, then they just stick to the 10 minutes.
Okay. Oh, I should have asked this earlier. Oh, that was the question that I missed. How did teaching changed your view? Because it must have taught you something.
Yeah, I it really taught me that there are different ways that folks absorb material and different things to learn. something that came to me real easy is difficult to one student, and something that took me forever to understand comes easy to another student. And there's different types of learning. Um, what's super popular in the United States is the traditional classroom style, which is lecture based, but most students don't actually learn that way. Some students are visual learners, some are auditory, some learn by feeling the thing themselves, like doing it. So there's different ways. So teaching has really taught me that when I talk to folks, I try to learn like, okay, which way keeps them engaged the most, and I try to incorporate stuff like that. Um, to and when I teach students myself, I can be teaching, like for example, I can be teaching 4 children at the same time. They're all same age, they all go to the same school, they had similar backgrounds, but each student learns completely differently than the other. So you're toning the same instrument, let's say same instrument, but you're going and doing different things. Like one student really likes technique and basic, like really hones in on their technique, and they're excited to do warm-ups. Another student doesn't really want to do that. They have ADHD, they get distracted easy, so you have to keep them engaged the entire time. And what one method works for one student doesn't work for the other. So you're trying to balance that. And in the classroom setting, usually you have 20 students at the same time. So how are you going to balance all of these students and try to make sure that no one gets left behind? Because if someone's left behind for something, it's really hard to catch up, especially if you miss something. So it's trying to also figure out at the same time, does every single student understand how to play? Let's see, like, can every student tongue if they're brass? So that's when your instrument, your tongue has to move a certain way. That way the sound comes up short or long. It like cuts the sound or elongates the sound. So you want to be like, can each student do that? Or are they faking it and breathing every single note? And you don't want a student to do that, because then it turns into hyper ventilation, because they're just going for each note. Instead of stopping the wind, the air with their tongue, you want the students to learn that.
What instrument are you talking about when you're
For
talking about?
brass and woodwinds.
Oh, okay.
So the ones that you breathe air into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for percussion, you don't have to do that. For percussion, usually students forget to breathe because they're holding their breath, because they're so focused on the instrument.
Okay. And in a way, then would you make a statement that every musician should learn how to teach or should teach someone?
I think so. I think most musicians learn how to teach someone, at least privately, because being a musician, you often have to do more than one in order to get a steady income, and that tends to be privately, unless you're in the music industry and you do mixing and editing and all of that sorts. But I know some folks who do that and still teach privately. But teaching privately really reminds you of some questions that you forget to think of. Like for me, when I first started teaching, I realized when I grab a sticks, I just grab them and I know how to play. When I play trombone, I just grab the trombone and I instantly know how to hold it. I know how to blow air into it so it can make a sound. But students don't know that. They'll grab the sticks and then they're holding the sticks entirely wrong. If they're like, oh, right, I need to show someone how to do that. And then it keeps you from being lazy and learning bad habits. Sometimes you're practicing and you'll be like, I'm going to do this because it's easier, but then you end up causing injury to yourself because you're holding it wrong. So it just reminds you of stuff, and then it just teaching is better overall. Just learning how to teach so you can communicate with other folks about the subject as well.
So I'm listening that it improves your basics and it improves your communication skill, right? Anything I
Yes.
missed?
No, that's entirely it. All.
Okay. Okay, I thought it would be much more engaging personally with people too, in a way, right?
Yeah, definitely more engaging with that. Um, a lot more engaging. And then you can also stay on top of the slang, the new slang that comes on.
Okay, which one did you learn?
I know that for whatever reason, 67 is hilarious.
What?
Yeah, 67 is the number. If you want to make middle schoolers giggle, 67.
Oh, I really don't want to know what's the background of this.
Yeah. I'm that teacher that says stuff to be cringy. So
Oh,
I'll use the slang that they're using to the point to where they're like, Miss Mena, please don't.
oh,
Uh, That's
oh, so
the teacher I am. They're like, no, you can't say it. You can't say that.
okay. So you just make it worse. Like you just make the whole phrase and slang uncool, right? So that no one use.
Yeah.
Interesting. 67. I didn't know about that.
I don't get it, but the kids find it hilarious. Yeah. Well, one thing I did find out is that I can understand folks who have trouble speaking English or speaking at all, just because teaching, I work with a lot of students who are disabled in the arts. They tend to choose classes in the arts, especially nonverbal kids. And I had this one student in middle school. He joined, he was so excited, and he didn't know the names of the other instruments except for saxophone. He's like, I want to play the saxophone. I want to play saxophone. Saxophone was all he talked about. So, of course, we gave him the saxophone to play. And his behavior was amazing. He worked the hardest out of everyone. He would draw out how each fingering and the note for that fingering. So which ones you're pressing down and which ones aren't being pressed down.
Hmm.
It's a combination of that. So the air passes through and you're holding some down to create a certain pitch. And he went and drew up his own, even though we gave him one, he drew it up and then he colored it. And that really helped him. And the school comes over and pulls him out of music. And they said that they're pulling him out of music because he needs to learn how to socialize. And all his other teachers are complaining about his behavior. And I was like, I'm not seeing any bad behavior. He's on top of his assignments. It takes him a little longer, but he's on top of everything. He's working extra hard. And in music, he's learning how to communicate with his section. I'm not seeing any struggle with that part, but they're like, no, we need to take him out of music and put them into that class. And he came during his lunch break and he was crying while he was giving us his instrument. And that literally broke my heart. Like, even telling the story now hurts so much because he was so excited to play the instrument. And it's almost like, and he was achieving, he's like, this is the only class that I feel like I'm normal. And it like really, like it hits me so hard because he has such a hard time in all the other classes. Even though teachers are trying to make them to stray away from the traditional classroom setting, a lot of them still are. Everyone's facing one direction. You're sitting down, you're listening to the teacher talking the entire time, you're taking notes. But there's so many different ways you can learn. And in music, you're not just listening to the teacher talk, you're engaging with it, you're playing it yourself. You're listening to your classmates all play, you're hearing different sounds. There's a lot of different things you're doing. And that student was really excelling in that class because it was different from a traditional classroom setting. So teaching also helps you communicate with folks who don't always communicate the same way you do. And I've talked to students who don't understand English, and we were able to find different forms of communication. So now when someone walks up to me and they're trying to communicate with me, I'm able to find a point on how we can communicate.
What was his condition and what happened afterwards?
Yeah, he was autistic and on the spectrum. So I don't work at the school anymore, so
Hmm.
I don't know how he's fared, like what happened afterwards.
Oh, that's really heartbreaking. Uh, yeah, and again, I guess the NPO that you're thinking about will help other uh, kids similar to him
Yeah,
help out.
yeah. I'll help out. The goal is to help out a lot of folks and how music can benefit folks with various different conditions.
Yeah, and you mentioned autism and you also mentioned epilepsy. Is there any other conditions that came up in your research while preparing the presentation for the NPO?
Yeah, there's so many. They actually have a major ATSES on music therapy,
Hmm.
which directly consists of helping folks out with various conditions. And so there's so many to talk about. I just not an expert in those. Uh, so for the NPO, I would hire some music therapists to also help me with that research who are certified in music therapy.
Okay, that's cool. That's really cool. I didn't know about that, to be honest. I didn't know about anything about the music therapy at all, and it's really educating. It's really educating for me. Thank you very much. By the way, I have ADHD if you haven't noticed.
Yeah, ADHD is very, very common.
Yeah. And yeah, it's funny. And we haven't. So it's like, okay, before I let you go, is there anything that you want to mention here?
No, but just thank you for inviting me onto your podcast. It's been a big privilege. Excited to
Thank you.
finally chat with you again. It's been quite a while since we last spoke. So it's nice to see your face.
Oh,